As a follow-up to the typography video that I just made, the Typography for Noobs video, I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk about how you can do some of these things and some of the controls that you have in design software. I'll be using Adobe Illustrator today, but there's a lot of these types of things in most of the software that you can do this in. If you want to follow along in Illustrator with me, then you can go down to Window, Type, and open up Character and Paragraph. Those are the two that I'm going to be in. Let's zoom in there. So I've got character here, I've got paragraph here, and you can go in and you can do, if yours doesn't have all the options, you can go in and you can do show options, okay? And let's define some things really quick. So this is what Adobe is going to call the font family and what typographers and designers would call the typeface. This is the font, the different fonts inside of that typeface. So I've got Baskerville here is my typeface, Baskerville regular, Baskerville italic, Baskerville semi-bold are the fonts, okay? Down here we've got point size, and so you can see that you can increase or decrease the size of font. So if I go in and I select this and I increase or decrease, that type of thing, right? This is the leading. Leading is the space in between lines. It comes from back when they were doing movable typesets in metal. They would put a line of lead in between the lines if they wanted more space. And so if I want to do that, I can increase or decrease the leading. I can also leave it on auto here. I'm going to turn this down to 0 to give you an idea of what it would be without making any changes. This is the kerning. Kerning is the space in between letters. You would only do this in situations where maybe you're using a font that isn't designed very well, that you got to have some free sight or something, or if you display something larger. And so let's try this really quick. So I'm going to jump over to my type tool by pressing T. So I'm going to highlight this. Let's make it larger. Let's make it all caps. Okay. And now what I'm noticing is like the A and the N are touching each other, right? And the D and the R are really close, but the A and the D, they seem a little bit further apart. And so I might come in and, adjust the spacing there at a larger size. Sometimes you have to kern things a little bit. For the most part, if you don't know what you're doing, kind of stay away from that. I'll show you an easier way to do this to eyeball it if you want to use the touch type tool, is you can touch one of these letters and then you can just click it and drag it. Be careful because you can also drag it up, right? You can also rotate it. There's a lot of interesting things that you can do with the touch type tool. And that's actually doing these two controls. This is the baseline shift, which will raise or lower where that letter or whatever you have highlighted is. And this is the rotation, okay? Don't use these. Don't do vertical scale or horizontal scale. Bad news bears. And so if I came in here and I just, everything just starts to look a little bit wrong. They're not designed to really do that, and it becomes kind of problematic. So I would avoid using those at all. Then we have these things, all caps or small caps. If we go all caps, everything is the same size. If we go small caps, then they're all capital letters, but the capitalized letters are taller than the other ones. You can do superset, subset, underline, all those types of things, okay? So that's kind of your character, your paragraph panel. You've got left aligned, middle aligned, or center aligned, right aligned, okay? And so center aligned puts everything like that. Don't touch center aligned unless you kind of really want to kind of manipulate the text quite a bit, because it gives you two rag edges on either side. It's a problem. So we've got our flush edge over here. We've got our rag edge over here on left alignment, right alignment, flush edge on the right, rag edge on the left. And then you can go justified. Justified is okay in some situations, but it does start to space your wording out pretty significantly. And so if you look at like this big giant gap between the end of this sentence and this, and the big giant gap between these compared to the much smaller gaps here, it just gives you a flush edge on both sides, which if you're dealing with a lot of text, then you can kind of get through some stuff. But if you don't have a lot, it's not the best. And then you can also come in and you can do justified except the last line is centered, or the last line is right aligned, or worse, the last line is also justified, and you can see it kind of just looks terrible. So generally speaking, large blocks of text, left aligned is pretty solid. Bulleted lists, things like this. You can also have indentation. And there's two different ways that you can deal with the space in between paragraphs. A first line indent, and you can come in here and you can have an indent on each of the first lines of the paragraph. It's going to treat your headers and subheaders that way as that as well. You can put them in separate text boxes if you don't want to do that. I actually prefer a space instead. And so I'm going to go space after. You can go space before paragraph or space after paragraph. I'm going to go space after, and you can kind of do this. This is much better than pressing a return or enter twice to give you a hard return in between. It's significantly better. You have more control. It doesn't add a bunch of hard returns into the text that you then have to go grapple with if you're doing other things. And so that's that. I would always turn hyphenation off. We also have some submenus up in the hamburger menu here, and so you can do a lot of these types of things up at the top there. Okay, let's talk about Concordant first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back into my type tool, and I'm going to give myself a header. Concordant means that we're going to stay all inside of the same typeface, and we will switch up the fonts. And so I'm going to go bold and all caps, and then I'm going to come down here and let's go italic, right? And then I might increase the size a little bit, something like that. And while I've got this, I might just take that, put that paragraph a little bit closer. Let's select this up here, and we'll put the subheader a little bit closer as well. Okay, so we got some of that. Then I can go into character here, and let's select the rest of this. Okay, and we can look at this and we can say, do we want to keep it regular? Do we want to kind of do these types of things, right? We've got some of these options, and we also can come in and we can increase or decrease the size of it. And what you end up with is a concordant relationship where all of the text works really well together because it is all designed to be part of that same type family, that typeface. And I can still come in here and say, hey, I don't know if I want that italic, right? I'm just going to go a semi-bold or regular, right? And that's fine. Okay. Now, if I switch this over to, let's say, like Helvetica, okay, let's go Helvetica Neue, okay, and I can come in and let's make the whole thing Helvetica. So I'm going to grab the whole thing, and we'll go Helvetica Neue, right? Changes everything over, okay, and then I can put everything, and I've got all of these different options, okay, and so some typefaces have a lot of options, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to change this to, let's go bold. Right, and I'm going to take it out of all caps and maybe do that. And then I'll come in here and let's keep that at ultralight, and let's grab the rest of these and let's put this at, let's try regular. Okay. And so you can come in here and you can kind of play with the idea with concordant relationships is you want to use contrast. And so you want to go in and you want to contrast the size, the weight, the structure, like whether it's italic or not, those types of things, and the positioning. So I might come in here with this one. It feels a little bit close in proximity, so I'm going to jump in the paragraph, and I'm just going to increase that, and maybe come in here and just increase that as well, something like that. Okay, so that's basically what we're looking at there. Now, if we want to go contrasting instead of concordant, then we can come in and we can go contrasting, right? And that means that we're going to switch typefaces, but you want to make sure that you're contrasting those typefaces, not conflicting those typefaces. And so the two main things that you would want to do, let's switch this to Garamond. The two main things that you want to contrast is you would want to contrast whether it has serifs or not and the weight of it, right? And so I'm going to contrast this. Header is going to have serifs. I'm also going to change maybe not. I'd have to make that. So we could do something like, let's keep that bold. And then let's come over here to character and we'll go all caps, but we'll lower the size. So our subheaders are going to be down like that. Okay. And then let's grab this and increase the spacing a little bit to give us a little bit of room. Right. Okay. And then I can come in and let's change this. Now, if I want to contrast this, then I've got a medium to heavily weighted header. And so I want to have with serifs, I want to have something that's lighter weight without serifs. And so let's come in and find something here. Something that you can do as well is you can come in, and if you click on these filters, then you can come in and you've got these different options. And so if I just want to see sans serif, I can just click on that filter there, and it's going to give me all of these options. Now I'm looking for something that will be legible at a small size. And so I might use like Avenir next. And then I can come in and I can, instead of ultra wide, let's go regular. Okay. And now I've got this typeface contrasts in serif and in weight with the headers. And so that would be a good one. We can switch those up, and I can say, let's take this and we'll do Avenir up at the top here. Bring this back up again. Okay. And I can change that from heavy to light, or I can have this be light, right? And then, you can choose whether you want it to be all caps or you want it to be small caps or whatever, right? All the different things that you can do. The nice thing with contrasting is because you can have a different typeface than your body copy, you can also come into the top here, and let's say I'm going to do the font that I use. I got to take my filters off, clear all filters. Okay. And then let's come back over here and let's go veneer. Okay. And veneer is technically a display font, but it's also a sans serif, right? And so if I came in here like this and kind of spread that out, let's say that I wanted it to be like this, but I want it to be spread out. I'll spread out the tracking a little bit. Okay. And then I can come in, and the rest of these, I might change the rest of these to be Garamond as well, so that they all have the same thing, but they contrast in weight and in serif of those other ones. And so that's basically how we do this. That might be like a little bit. Let's come in here, and we got regular. I'm going to put my subheader at bold and a little bit larger, something like that. Okay. So those are kind of the basics of how to kind of like think through these types of things. Is you can have this. If we wanted to do like a pull quote, I could come in here, and I could say, okay, I want a pull quote, and so I'm going to change this up. Maybe I make this bold, and maybe I increase the size of it a little bit, and I do some indentation, and I might even center line it, right? And if I center line, I'm going to get rid of my indentation, or I'm going to do indentation on both sides. Put that at 47 as well. Okay, and so we've got kind of that becomes a different thing. You could change the color, you can change whatever. But as you're kind of doing that, this starts to look other than or different than this. Now this, in my opinion, is a little bit too close in size to my subheader. And so I'm going to take this and I'm just going to decrease it in size until it feels different than the body copy, but also different than the subheader. You're going for contrast and those types of things, right? I'm not a big fan of center line stuff in the middle of things, but you get the idea. These are all the different options that you have that you can go in and mess with. Now, one more thing, I'm not going to go into a lot here, but you can go in and you can do character or paragraph styles. Let's just put it up here. Okay, so paragraph styles, okay. And if I came into paragraph styles, I could come in and I could click on this, right? And it's going to apply whatever that paragraph style is to that. Okay, but I can also double click on this and it will open up this menu here. And this is where I can go in and I can set some of those things. So I can say, okay, let's go with, veneer 2, and we'll make it regular. And I can set all of these different things. And then when I click OK, anything that I tag with that will be changed that way. And if I were to edit it, I could edit it. And so I'm going to get out of this where it's not selected anymore. Okay. I'm going to double click here. That brings this up to edit it. And I'm going to go into basic character formats, and I'm going to say, actually, I want this to be quite a bit bigger. And without this being selected, it increases that. Okay. I'm going to create another one, and let's call this one body. Okay. And I'm going to click on the body, and let's come in basic, and let's go Helvetica. Okay. And so if I come in here like this, and I click on this, and then I click on that, it's going to do Helvetica, right? But if I double click on this, and I go into basic character formats, and I choose a size, let's go with 14 or 18. And we can kind of see it in the video. Okay, I can come in. all kinds of this, horizontal scale, baseline shift, character rotation, all that stuff. I can also do color. So I'm going to do color to kind of show you what's going on. Okay. So right now I'm just going to go registration. Okay. And then I can make a copy of this, and I'm going to double click on this guy, and let's call this red. Okay. And I go into character color, and I'm going to change it to red. I click OK. Okay. Now here's where it gets kind of cool. So if I select stuff, so let's select this whole thing, and I'm going to turn it to the black, right? But then I want to have this stuff be red, right? And this one be red, and this stuff be red. Okay. Then I have all of these different things, and whenever I change any of these, it'll kind of change that. So let's say that I decide, you know what, I don't want that to be red. I want anything tagged with that character style to actually be italicized and all caps. And so I can double click on this. I can come in to edit this again, and I can say, let's go basic character format. Okay, let's get character color. And just so we can see it, let's change it to green or blue. And see how without selecting anything, it's changing that. It's kind of like HTML and CSS. Okay, so I'm going to change this to this, and then I'm going to go in here and let's change oblique, case, and go all caps. I'm going to add one called header. Okay, and I'll go font family, and let's go veneer. Okay, and I'll make it regular, and let's go bigger. Okay, and then I'll click OK. And then I can come in like this, and I can take this, and I can select this, and choose header, okay, and it applies that. Then I can come in and I can select this here, right? And I can choose header, but maybe I want to make a slightly different one, and we'll call that subheader, okay? And I'm going to double click, and I'm going to edit this over here, and so I'm going to go, you can be veneer, but I want you to be smaller, right? And I also want you to be more spread out, and then I want you to come in and let's change the color to red, okay? Now, then I can come in, right? And anywhere where I'm like, oh, this is actually, I want to put a subheader here, right? I can come in and I can say, this is a subheader. Select it, highlight subheader, and it applies all those things. And then later, without anything selected, if I'm like, why am I choosing red? Double click on that, right? You can change whatever you want, and it changes everything. And so this is a great way to control your typography on a global level. It works really well in InDesign and Illustrator and other types of things, but it's called styles. So you've got character styles. You also have paragraph styles, and in paragraph styles, it gives you a lot of these options from general to basic and all this stuff. And you get tabs and hyphenation and justifications and bullets and numbers and all those types of things. So you can have different paragraph styles baked inside of this thing, but this will give you, you know, all of the controls that you have in character style. And then it also gives you indents and spacing so that you can say, oh, I actually want this much space or that much space. And instead of having to go back and highlight things and then change them, you can just change them globally after you tag them. So that is that. That's kind of the rundown of the different types of things that you can do in the software to control your typography. And I highly recommend that you go watch the video that will talk you through the basic typography rules. And if you haven't seen it yet, go check out the videos on the introduction to the basic design principles as well. And if you haven't, like, subscribe, share, do the things, leave a comment, and we will catch you guys later. Go make stuff.